Hi everybody, Ron Chapman Jr. here, Executive Director of Games for Life Incorporated, bringing you our Game of the Week number 6, and this is a tournament game that I played last night. I'm rated about 1800, my opponent was about 1850, so about an even match, and so it was an interesting game. It looked like I was going to lose. I was able to pull out a draw, and I'll show you how I did it. I'm going to do something a little bit different with this video. Usually I do the little colored highlighted stuff as you're watching, but I actually did it beforehand this time, so we'll see how that looks. Okay, I'm playing white, and let's see, I start off with e4, e5, oops, sorry, knight to c3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, knight to f6, knight from g to e2, and if you've been watching my videos before, you know that I just like to make that move. I don't know if it's out of a book or not, but I don't know if it's a main line, but I like it, so I try it. Bishop to e7, d3, and then d6. And I thought that was an interesting move, the d6 move, because that makes his dark square bishop, it locks it in right now. Can't really go anywhere. It's kind of defensive, but it works out for him. Man, sorry. Let's see. So I do a3, and again, if you've seen my videos, you know I like to do a3. I like to put that bishop or the arrow back on a2 and just kind of leave it there and have it attacking that long diagonal. He castles, knight to g3, bishop to g4. I push up f3, and those green squares I was just saying, usually you want to leave those pawns there so you can castle on that side, but I liked f4, it worked in this case. Or sorry, I liked f3. He moves the bishop back. I don't have any good squares for my bishop necessarily, so I just trade. He takes back, and now we both have those that diagonal square from our king open. Bishop to e3. He pushes down d5. And it's important to note here is if I was to make some other, let's say I do queen to d2, then he would do d4, forking my knight and my bishop and winning one of them. So instead of instead of letting him fork me, I put bishop out to g5. He brings bishop to c5, and that cuts off the diagonal, making it so that I cannot castle. That's always a good thing if you can keep your opponent from castling. I do knight to h5, double attacking his knight. Here's a little color we'll do right now. I'm double attacking his knight, but his knight is pinned down by my bishop. Because it's attacking the queen behind it, and so he brings his bishop back to break that pin down, and I just move my knight back. h6. There's no good squares for my bishop in this case. I can't go here. I get taken. I can't go here because I'll get forked like I just showed you. And I don't want to go here because that would be like starting over. So here's the only square I can really put my bishop, and I didn't really feel like doing that. So I take his, he takes back with the rook. I castle, knight to d4. I want to trade off his knights, and now he brings in his bishop to c5. He's potentially going to get a discovered check if I didn't notice this. Like let's say I do queen to d2. He would take my knight, and then simultaneously putting me in check. And then when I move my king out of check, he can take this other knight, which would put him up a full piece. So instead of letting him do that, I just move my king over to h1. He moves his rook over to g6 with the idea that he can bring his queen in to h4 and start causing me a lot of trouble. I'll show you a little bit more about that in a second. I take his knight. He takes with his bishop. I push him back. c3. I push him back again. With d4, he takes. I take, and he runs his bishop back. I thought about this move for a while. I was trying to decide if I wanted to push this pawn past or if I wanted to take. I end up going past, and then he brings his queen here with the idea that, let's say I move my queen there, then he could take my knight for free because this pawn is pinned down. And then earlier when he had his bishop here, my only escape square was also taken from me, so I would have been in trouble. So when he brings queen to h4, I just move my king over, so he can no longer take my knight for free. That's a good move for him. C5. If I was to take and he was to take back, then I move my king over, and then he could win my knight like I just showed you. So when he does c5, I do queen to d3. Not a great move. I was just attacking his rook, see if I could, you never know, maybe he'd miss it. But he actually takes my pawn, d4, putting me in check. My only move here is to take with the queen. He takes back with his pawn, and now he's up a pawn. So I wasn't too concerned. I felt like I could probably get that pawn back because he has double pawns here. So I go knight, immediately attacking that pawn, bishop, defending it to c5, and then that was a good move for me, knight to f4. Reason that's a good move for me is he doesn't have anywhere to put his rook, if you notice, anywhere good anyway. He leaves it there, I can take it. If he moves it to, let's see, g4, I can obviously take it with the pawn. If he moves it here, I can take it with this pawn, and if he moves it here, I can take it. But if he moves it to the only safe square, which is g5, then I actually get a fork, I win a pawn and get a fork on his bishop and his rook. So that knight f4 move was strong for me. He didn't have any great moves, and so he actually just brings his king up to protect his rook, or at least be able to take back if I take his rook. So I looked at this for a while. I can either win some material by taking the rook, or I can just go to d3, attacking his knight, and keeping the position kind of closed. I don't know if that's the correct idea in that situation. I end up going and trying to take the material. I don't know, potentially a bad idea. He takes back. I get my king to f2, and that was the idea. I want to get my king out. I don't want my king to be pinned down by this bishop the whole time. Probably not the best way to get him out there. Probably would have been better if I had just pushed past and then moved him out that way. But anyway, what I did, I tried to go out that way. He attacks my pawn. I protect with my rook. He does put me in check. And then I run out here to king to g3. He puts his bishop on d4. Good move, attacking my both pawns. I don't have a lot of good options. Rook over, puts me in check. I can move my king. I decided not to. I decided just to take. He takes back, and I take a pawn back, but I'm still down a pawn, and he has a passed pawn in the middle of the board, so my chances aren't looking too great at this point. He moves rook to c8. I knew what he was going to do. I knew he was going to pull his rook down to the c2 and attack this pawn and this pawn. To be honest, I thought this game was kind of over at this point, so I was just seeing if I could get something going. King to g4, he does exactly that. Rook to c2, I check him. King to e4, I bring my rook over to protect one. He takes that pawn, check. I put my attacking his rook, and then he moves his rook to g6, which keeps my king out of the game, keeps him back on his h-file. That's a good move. Except it actually ends up, this rook is kind of stuck. If you see, you'll see in a couple moves how that works out in my favor. I take the pawn, he takes a pawn, I take a pawn. Now I'm only down a pawn in this position, but he has two connected passed pawns, as do I, but his are a little further along, and his are going down the middle of the board. Chances didn't look great for me here. d4, I start pushing my pawns. I mean, that's the only choice I had, really. He pushes again. I put him in check. He moves his king over. I just put my rook behind that pawn so I can take it if it promotes. He pushes it again. I push my pawn. He sees that his pawn is actually blocking his rook from getting into the action. So he pushes that pawn. I connect him again. He has to move his king one square closer to protect his pawn. And then I'm just pushing my pawns. He promotes. I have to take, and then he takes back, and then look at that. I push to b6, and all of a sudden his rook is out of play. He can't get his rook into a good position in order to stop both of my pawns. So he moves his rook over. I push another one. Checks me. I go down. Checks me again. I move up. He doesn't have much to do. He pushes the pawn. And then I push mine. He has to take. I take queen, and at this point, we actually agreed to a draw. I turned a loss into a draw. That's always good. If I had some more time, I may have thought about seeing if I could win this game, but I was under some severe time pressure, so I just took a draw. But, you know, moral of the story is always keep playing. You never know when things might work out in your favor. Okay, thanks.